Alright guys, so with the Edge of Fate now at its end, and with the next expansion being Renegades, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to talk about the Dredgen that they mentioned in the actual lore that we're getting, and with my favourite weapon of all time being the exotic hand cannon Thorn, and the lore around the Dredgens, which is my most favourite lore of all time, with Shin Malphur and Dredgen Yor, which is Rezo Azir, if anyone doesn't know who that is. Oh my god, I thought now would be absolutely the best time to talk about JANA-14. Now, JANA-14 has been touched upon many times in the past in many other people's lore videos. However, I think now is really the pinnacle time to start actually talking about JANA-14 and potentially putting this psychopathic exo on people's minds, because there is a chance that we might be seeing her very soon. Now, allow me to elaborate for those that don't know who JANA-14 is. And just very real quick, I'm not a lore channel. I just love the lore of Destiny so much that I literally spend my life just reading as much as I possibly can to just try and know as much as I can. Like, I am that guy. I become hyper fixated on this game's lore, and I've done it for the past 11 years. And JANA-14 springs to my mind the moment when Renegades said that a new potential Dredgen is on the scene. So why am I talking about JANA-14? So, after Dredgen Yor was, I was going to say apprehended, but he was killed by Shin Malphur, the Shadows of Yor formed themselves and had replicas of Thorn. Now, it wasn't exact copies of Thorn. We all know that Rezo Azir had the original copy of Thorn. That is his weapon. It went from Rose to Thorn, and obviously he got corrupted into Dredgen Yor as part of that transition as well. But we know that the Shadows of Yor only had replicas. So, for example, the Shadow of Yor that you saw in the cinematic with Drifter, he holds Thorn up to Drifter's face, and that was not the original Thorn. That was just a copy of Thorn. In fact, a little TLDR, if you want to know where the original copy of Thorn is, it doesn't exist anymore. The original copy of Thorn was actually taken by Shin Malphur and blessed and kind of decorrupted into the gun that you guys might know and love called Lumina. Anyway, without getting too sidetracked off of that, JANA-14 worked in a facility which was orchestrated by the Vanguard with a group of scientists to study the effects of one of the replicas of Thorn. And that was her job. That was her job that was assigned to her. And my god, it all just kind of goes a little bit downhill from here. A lot happens, and in the lore page of Necrotic Grips, we actually learn a little bit more as to what it was like for JANA-14 while she was undergoing her studies with Thorn. So we're going to read that now. The Ishtar Collective. This is literally where I spend most of my life when I'm not playing Destiny. Anyway, so a lot of people, when seeing the Necrotic Grips lore for the very first time, automatically assigned this subtext to Necrotic Grips. It's actually not. We don't know too much about Necrotic Grips. However, everything that we're about to read is actually based on JANA-14's experience with the replica of Sorrow, Thorn. It says here, to gain power, you must sacrifice, and Exos have known this long before Guardians' rise. Takio 3. There's a whole lore reason behind that as well, but that's a whole separate thing that we're not going to get into. And again, guys, before I very quickly just start here, I know that this has already been said before on other people's channels. I just want to bring it to your attention now and kind of give you my take as well, just because of how close we are to Renegades. So, let's start with Project Day 2. I just got my first look at Artifact H349. So, H349 is Thorn. That's what they've labeled the artifact. It's heavier than expected. More than a few people questioned if we even should be studying something with such a dire legacy. But if we can't understand our enemies' tools, then we leave ourselves vulnerable to them. So the whole point of them actually studying Thorn in the first place is to understand the hive magic, the actual corruption of Thorn, so that they can maybe get like some form of countermeasure in the future if some outbreak like that were to happen again, because obviously, you know, the weapons of sorrow being a whole thing. We're going to get into that later in the video. Project Day 5. Run our first tests of the artifact. Let's call them necrotic properties. We used cattle. They were large enough to survive the initial discharge. The results have been upsetting. No more animal testing. Project Day 30. So we're 25 days later now. Spectral analysis is back, and it's got nothing. The artifact doesn't operate like traditional hive tech, which is our closest analog. A cult of deranged fanatics can mass produce knockoffs, but we can't even tell you what it's made from. Yep, and I actually hope that we learn a little bit more about that in Renegades. I'm so excited for that. Project Day 31. We had an accidental discharge. Caro, the lab tech over in 4B. Human. So this is going to be it for him. Yeah, that's another thing as well. This is the incident. Whenever someone talks to you about the incident that happened with JANA-14 during her testing with Thorn, this is that incident that they are referencing it to. Caro is a human scientist that works in the facility, or worked in the facility with JANA-14 at the time to help undergo these studies about Thorn, and unfortunately has resulted in the unfortunate effects of being part of, or a victim of, the discharge that happened with one of the replicas of Thorn. So it literally says here, this is going to be it for him. We've got someone staying with him as the corruption spreads. At the very least, there's so much more to study now as we watch this unfortunate deterioration. So this is interesting here. So, but on day 31, you can already see here a shift in JANA-14's mindset. She is already changing in such a way that basically says, so my colleague dying by this accidental discharge isn't so much sad, but almost more fascinating, and we should absolutely learn from this. And that mindset, that corrupted mindset, only just gets worse. He's been babbling since it's hit his central nervous system, saying, I'm reborn, or variations thereof. I think he almost sounds happy. Yeah, this is, oh my god, the lore just gets better. Project Day 39. The Vanguard forbade a post-mortem, but a few of us couldn't stomach the idea of Caro's sacrifice being in vain. The results have been insightful. Off the record, I'm keeping a few tissue samples. It almost feels like having him around. That's just so messed up. By the way, I've read this lore already. I just want to bring it to fruition again because it's so good. Project Day 41. We began the day with another moment of silence for our lost colleague. Too bad he's not around to appreciate it. Just that last line there. Alright, we're 4 days later. Project Day 45. We kept thinking about H349 as a destroyer, but it's more sophisticated than that. I mean, with a normal gun, it's just boom, done. H349, on the other hand, is deadly, not destructive, but much like a Viper, its bite does not bring about instant death. Instead, its venom congeals. It co-opts your beating heart into a deathlock, ticking down your last moments. Your own pulse kills you. Oh my. The writing is 10 out of 10. Alright. Death may be slow and agonizing for its victim, but for the Viper, time is an amendable trade for efficiency. Whoever wrote this is 10 out of 10. Project Day 51. Yaniv has been crying a lot lately. We must accept tragedies happen. It's a hard lesson to learn. Project Day 65. Another accidental discharge today. We realized that yours little creation is hungry, so we fed it more. It certainly performs in exchange. The activity is intriguing after it feasts. I've been able to follow Yaniv's degradation with a more analytical mind than when we lost Caro. I have to say, the process is so elegant, the silence involved almost seems poetic. It may be reproducible. Just imagine how much more I could have learned if the scanners were all active at the time. Now, the scanners we're going to talk about in just a moment, but oh my god. So it's claimed another victim, and again, JANA-14, by the way, is gone at this point. JANA-14 is so obsessed now with the corruption of Thorn. By the way, the Project Day 65, they're literally talking about Soul Devourer. This is basically the perk of the gun. The whole point of Soul Devourer and the whole point of Thorn is that, and by the way, this goes back to the lore when the Shadows of Yore actually went into the Crucible with their replica of Thorn. Not only did it slowly degrade the Guardian, but the actual corruption of Thorn, which is what creates that remnant that you pick up to get your Soul Devourer, that in the lore is actually the corruption of Thorn ripping and sucking out the light from the connection between the Guardian and the Ghost and completely flatlining them both. Now, obviously, that doesn't happen in the game because I can't just go and kill someone and completely wipe their saved file. However, in the lore, that is it. You are done. That is it. And the Shadows of Yore took that into Crucible. It's just mad. Anyway, finishing off here with Project Day 77, another accidental discharge. This time, I ensured the scanners were running beforehand. Audio logs of Warlock and researcher JANA-14 salvaged after evacuation. So by the way, this is actually one thing I wanted to touch upon, because when Necrotic Grips came out, people were a little bit confused as to why Necrotic Grips was actually a set of Warlock arms. Well, this is why. It's because JANA-14 is an Exo Warlock that studied all of this stuff and actually brought this stuff to us. She eventually goes on to create her own Weapon of Sorrow, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But obviously, we all know that Reza Wazir, Dredgen Yor, is a Titan. I see a lot of fashion for Reza Wazir as a hunter, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But yeah, he is a Titan. He is one of my most favorite Titans in all of Lore of Destiny. But this is why the exotic arms Necrotic Grips is actually for the Warlock, because all of this stuff in relation to the research of Thorn and studying its corruption and the accident that happened at the facility just before the Vanguard shut down the whole operation, this was all done by a Warlock. And it later comes to light that JANA-14, the Warlock, also creates her own Weapon of Sorrow. And here we have the introduction of Osteostriga. Now, Osteostriga is a weapon that I have tens of thousands of kills on, because it, again, is a Weapon of Sorrow. It looks like Thorn in an SMG, and that's all you really need to say to get me to be happy with that. Anyway, the sub blurb here says, victory is not the unmaking of an enemy, but in the remaking of an enemy into your blade. The 9th understanding, 7th revision of Sorrow. This is the part that Dredgen Yor made. Anyway, the lore goes on to say, pardon us, it just seems like he's always hungry. When I first became a mother, I didn't realize how much time would just be spent feeding him. Do you mind? Thank you. Now, this is huge. The reason why this entire first bit is huge is because we already know from the testing of when she was testing the replica of Thorn that after the discharge happened and claimed an enemy, it was fed. She was feeding Thorn, and the more it got fed, the more the gun started to perform. So now she knows that feeding the Weapons of Sorrow is what makes them tick. That is exactly what she does with Osteostriga. It's actually the pretty much the first thing that she does is starts to feed Osteostriga. At this point, by the way, she's made it. So Osteostriga now exists in her hands. She has made the gun. No, he doesn't look much like me. I know. There's a lot of orphans these days. I heard him crying from, oh my, it seems like half a world away. It was chance, honestly. I never thought of myself as a parent, but caring for another little life, it's taught me so much. May I? ? Sorry, I don't know why I'm sharing so much with you like this. You just seem so easy to talk to. And becoming a mum has really given me a lot more insight into the little connections between people. I used to focus so much on my work, I actually lost a few friends over it. We all know who she is talking about. She's talking about the incident, the initial incident, which is Caro, the human scientist researcher. And she's also talking about Yaniv. Oh, shush. There we go. That's right. Growing babies need their calcium. And where else is calcium found, guys? In bones. Calcium is found in bones. She is literally feeding Osteostriga to people as we read this. Now I can see what matters, the beauty in small things and quiet moments, in watching others light up when they see him, in the way meeting new people broadens him. Yeah, those new people don't last very long. I had another child, you know. That was before. I didn't keep him safe. It's for the best. He's safe now. She's talking about Thorn. Besides, it means I can appreciate this little one so much more. Just the two of us. I love my little Striga, and he's always so hungry. Case 620102. Suspect identity. JANA-14. Status at large. Evidence identity. #303. Audio device recovered adjacent to dismembered body, ribs, excised. Now this last bit is huge, and this is the whole reason as to why I wanted to put together this video. Because Renegades literally says that we have a new Dredgen of Yore on the loose. A new Dredgen of Yore. JANA-14 is obsessed with the revision of Sorrow, which is the part that Dredgen Yor Rezo wrote about. Her whole obsession began with the corruption of Thorn and just witnessing her colleagues degrade by the corruption of Thorn, and now she is at her all-time peak where she is just so corruptively far gone that she's made her own weapon of sorrow, treats it as her child, and she is actively killing people to feed the gun. Now she's out there. This is what this means. Status at large. She is on the loose. You are playing the game right now, and JANA-14 is going about committing mass murder to feed Osteostriga, to feed her gun. I really hope that they touch upon this in Renegades. If we go into Renegades and they talk about a brand new Dredgen, which is obviously going to involve Thorn at some point, which is also going to involve Weapons of Sorrow at some point, because that's the whole point of the Dredgen Yor lore being corrupted by hive magic, like, JANA-14 is going to make an appearance. I don't know if it's going to be the main storyline of Renegades. I don't know if it's going to be a lore book that we find in Renegades, but I can pretty much guarantee you now, JANA-14, in some way, shape, or form, is going to be mentioned in Renegades. I watched an interview recently between Allison and Bife, and Allison said that the best way that they kind of build their narrative is they have this ideology of a fridge, and all the ingredients are inside their fridge that they can pick from to use as part of their story in the future. And you don't always have to use that item straight away. Leave it in the fridge, keep it fresh, and then go back to it when you think it's time, when you think it's appropriate to use that ingredient, and eventually just make this sandwich that tastes delicious. You have Renegades. You've already told us in the little sub-blurb that there's going to be Dredgens involved, a new Dredgen, and JANA-14 is a huge opportunity. This is a huge ingredient for you to take out the fridge. I cannot wait. This is a big deal. The Vanguard are actually currently trying to hunt down JANA-14. The Vanguard has already sent out fire teams to try and hunt down JANA-14 and bring her down, because she is literally out there right now as you're running your dungeons, as you're running your strikes, as you're running your raids, as you're just chilling in orbit, chatting with your mates in Discord, in the lore of Destiny. This absolute psychopathic warlock exo is running around with her little Striga, killing and killing and killing, because it's always hungry. Guys, let me know if this was informative to you. Do you enjoy these little lore reads? Do you enjoy my little explanations? Do you enjoy just watching my overall excitement for the lore of Destiny? Because trust me, as much as I'm not a lore channel like what Bife is and like what Evase is, my lore knowledge of this game just runs so deep, because I'm just so dramatically, hyperfixatedly obsessed with it. I just love it so much. I'm not saying I'm the know-all of everything. I obviously don't know everything, but I'm pretty up there. I'm pretty up there when it comes to the knowledge, and I'm very excited to see where this goes. Guys, I thank you so much for your time. Let me know your thoughts and opinion on this. Do you think we're going to get JANA-14? Do you think she's going to be hinted at or even mentioned in some way, shape, or form? I really do hope so. But nevertheless, guys, I really appreciate your time. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, join the Discord, it's in the description of this video, and also follow me on Twitter, that's also in the description of this video. Why not? I'll see you in the next one, guys. Take care.